I shouldn't have cried in my car. Not there, not in broad daylight, parked outside a repair shop with grease-streaked glass and the sound of air compressors filling the air. But sometimes control slips, mascara runs, breath shakes, and even women who've built their lives around composure break in the most ordinary places. I was still in my work clothes, tailored ivory blouse, sleeves rolled to the elbows, hair pinned perfectly despite the weight of disappointment pressing against my ribs. The date had ended 30 minutes earlier. Another polite smile. Another man who said he admired my independence, then recoiled when it showed up in real time. So I sat there, in a luxury sedan that suddenly felt like a coffin, staring at my reflection in the windshield. My eyes looked tired, not from age, but from trying too hard to be the kind of woman men find approachable, yet impressive. It's an impossible line. That's when I heard the tap on the window. A shadow, tall, lean, sunlit from behind. When I looked up, the glare outlined him in gold. A man? No, a boy. At least that's what I thought at first. Early 20s, maybe. Messy dark hair, jawline too defined for innocence. A black shirt clinging to his frame, the top button undone. He didn't look like he belonged in a repair shop. He looked like someone who had accidentally wandered into a photograph and decided to stay. "You okay, ma'am?" His voice was calm, not prying, not soft, just present. I rolled the window down a little, forcing a smile. "Bad day. I'm fine." He nodded slowly, eyes scanning my face in a way that felt analytical, not flirtatious. "You sure? You've been sitting here for 10 minutes. Engine's still running." I hadn't even noticed. The hum under my seat, the faint scent of gasoline. It all blurred with my thoughts. "I just needed a minute," I said. He leaned against the door, one arm resting casually above the window frame. Sunlight caught the faint sheen of sweat on his collarbone. "Sometimes a minute turns into an hour," he said, half smiling. "And then you end up needing a jump start." It made me laugh, the first real sound I'd made all afternoon. "Do you say that to all your customers?" "Only the ones who look like they're trying too hard not to cry." I should have felt embarrassed, but there was something disarming about his bluntness. His name tag read Ethan. His shirt smelled faintly of motor oil and citrus soap. He tilted his head toward the garage. "If you're waiting on someone, you can come inside. It's cooler there. I can take a look at your car if you want." "My car's fine," I said. "I'm the one who's not." The words slipped out before I could stop them. He didn't flinch. Just watched me, quiet, steady. Then maybe that's what needs fixing. Something about that, the way he said it without pity, made my chest tighten. I turned the engine off and stepped out. The sun hit my skin, warm and merciless. He held the door open to the shop, not out of politeness, but as if it was natural to create space for someone who looked like they might shatter. Inside, the air smelled of metal, detergent, and sunlight trapped in glass. A radio hummed somewhere in the corner. Mechanics worked around cars lifted on platforms, their movements efficient and practiced. Ethan walked ahead of me, sleeves rolled up, black shirt creased in ways that looked intentional. "Water?" he asked, opening a small fridge beside the counter. "Yes, thank you." I took it, the bottle cool against my palm. He leaned on the counter, studying me. "Rough date?" I laughed, surprised again by how easily the truth surfaced around him. "You could tell? You're wearing perfume that costs too much for errands and your eyeliner's smudged on one side." "Observant," I said, sipping the water. He shrugged. "I work with engines. I notice what's off." The conversation hovered somewhere between comfort and tension. His tone was simple, but there was an unspoken rhythm in it, curiosity threaded with restraint. I could feel him measuring his words, as if he didn't want to scare me off. "Do you fix people as well as engines?" I asked, trying to sound detached. He smiled, small, knowing. "Only if they ask." That line stayed with me longer than it should have. He turned to help a coworker, and I watched the way his shoulders moved, unhurried, precise. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. That was what drew me in. I'd spent years surrounded by men who performed confidence. Ethan had it quietly. When he came back, he wiped his hands on a cloth and nodded toward my car. "You're due for an oil change soon. Want me to check it now?" I didn't need one. but I nodded anyway. Sure. Outside, the sun had shifted, brighter, almost blinding. I followed him, the sound of gravel underfoot oddly grounding. He lifted the hood, explaining what he was doing, but I barely heard him. I was watching his hands, the way they moved with certainty, veins catching light, a faint scar across one knuckle. You know, he said, glancing up, you don't strike me as someone who lets other people help her. I don't, I admitted. It's safer that way. He tightened a cap, then met my eyes. Safer doesn't always mean better. The words hung there, sharp, luminous. When he stepped closer, pointing something out under the hood, I caught the faint scent of his cologne. Something fresh, clean, unassuming. His sleeve brushed my arm, barely a touch, yet my pulse reacted as if it were more. He noticed. His gaze flicked to where our arms met, then back to my face. Neither of us moved. You okay? He asked again, softer this time. I nodded, though my breath betrayed me. I think so. Good. His voice was low, steady. Then you can stop pretending. That was the moment, the line that crossed everything. Not because of what he said, but because I let it in. When he lowered the hood, the sound echoed like punctuation. I felt something shift, invisible but real. A boundary dissolving. He handed me my keys. Car's fine. You just needed someone to remind you. Remind me of what? That you're allowed to be seen. The sunlight hit his face then. Pure, golden, almost cinematic. He wasn't smiling, but his expression carried something unguarded, something that made the air feel thinner. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but words failed. I just stood there, clutching the keys like proof of something I didn't understand yet. He turned away first, back toward the garage, leaving the scent of warm air and steel behind him. For a moment, I considered calling him back, asking for his number, thanking him, anything to make the connection tangible, but I didn't. I just watched him walk away, sunlight catching the undone button at his collar, the edge of his black shirt fluttering in the heat. When I finally sat back in my car, I realized I wasn't crying anymore. My reflection looked different, not fixed, but awake, and as I drove off, I caught him in the side mirror, still watching, hands in his pockets, half smile curving his lips. That was the moment I knew. Whatever had started in that sunlit parking lot wasn't finished. It was only just beginning. I told myself it was coincidence, that I didn't purposely drive by the repair shop again 2 days later, that I just happened to need a quick tire pressure check, that I wasn't hoping to see him, sunlight catching the undone button of his black shirt, sleeves rolled up, arms glinting with the faint sheen of effort. But the moment I parked, and he stepped out from behind a car, I knew. You again? He said, smiling like he'd been expecting me. Coincidence, I said, too fast. He raised an eyebrow. Right. Just like the universe needing 2 oil changes in 1 week. I laughed, shaking my head. Maybe I wanted to make sure you fixed me properly last time. That made him grin. And did I? Not even close. The way he looked at me then, steady, quiet, curious. I felt that same pulse under my skin again, the one that told me this was no longer harmless. Inside, the shop was bright, filled with echoes of metal and laughter from the other mechanics, but somehow around him everything slowed down. He offered me coffee from a dented metal thermos, and I took it, pretending not to notice how close our fingers brushed. So what do you do when you're not crying in cars? He asked, leaning against the counter. I run a marketing firm, I said. Mostly corporate clients. Deadlines, boardrooms, big words that mean very little. Sounds heavy. It is, I admitted. People expect me to have answers, to never hesitate, to always know what I'm doing. And do you? Most days, I said. Some days I just fake it better than others. He studied me, the corners of his mouth softening. That's honest. I don't get much practice, I murmured, and he smiled like he heard the confession beneath it. We ended up talking longer than either of us meant to, about work, music, places we wanted to travel. He told me he'd dropped out of engineering school, that working with his hands felt more real than sitting behind screens. Engines don't lie, he said. They either work or they don't. I envy that certainty, I said quietly. People lie all the time. When I finally stood to leave, he hesitated before saying, If your car needs anything, or if you do, you know where to find me. His tone was careful, respectful, but the space between the words burned with implication. I nodded, pretending I didn't feel it too. Over the next few weeks, I found excuses. Tire rotation, air filter. The smallest things became reasons to walk into that sun-drenched shop. Every time he was there, hair tousled, black shirt open at the collar, sun streaking across his forearms. He started calling me Ms. Trouble. I started bringing him coffee. The banter became our ritual, small doses of something neither of us dared name. One afternoon, he asked if I wanted to see the vintage car he'd been restoring in the back. It was quiet there, sunlight filtering through glass panels, dust swirling like glitter. The car was half polished, silver paint catching the light. It's beautiful, I said. Not finished yet, he replied, glancing at me instead of the car. I turned to him, and for a moment neither of us moved. The hum of tools faded. The world stilled. Why do you keep coming here? He asked. I could have lied. Said convenience, service, coincidence. But his eyes didn't deserve lies. Because I feel seen here, I said softly, and I don't even know why. He stepped closer, slow enough for me to step back if I wanted. I didn't. You're used to being in control, he said. People like that don't often let someone look too close. And you? I asked. What do you see? He hesitated, then said, Someone who forgot she's allowed to want. The air between us went still. My heartbeat filled the space. He didn't reach for me. He just stood there, his nearness saying everything. I could feel the heat of him, the faint scent of soap, sunlight, and something metallic. My hand moved before thought did, brushing a speck of grease from his collarbone. He exhaled, barely a sound, but it rippled through me like a confession. Ethan, I whispered. He didn't move closer. You can tell me to stop. I know. The silence that followed wasn't restraint. It was understanding. I stepped back first, breath shaky. I should go, he nodded, jaw tightening. Right. But before I reached the door, he said, You don't have to keep pretending this isn't real. The next week, I avoided the shop. Threw myself into work. Meetings, presentations, deadlines, everything I could control. Yet every time I glanced at my car keys, I thought of him. By Friday, I gave in. I drove past his shop again, telling myself I wouldn't stop. But when I saw him outside, sunlight catching the curve of his neck, that undone collar, I parked. He looked surprised but not shocked, like he'd been waiting. Couldn't stay away, he teased. Apparently not. This time we didn't go inside. We sat on the curb behind the shop, backs against the wall, the afternoon heat painting the world gold. He passed me a soda can, cold from the machine, and we talked. About nothing, about everything. He told me he wanted to start his own garage someday. I told him about the promotion I'd been offered but didn't want. I should be excited, I said, but it just feels like a bigger cage. He glanced at me, eyes narrowing against the sun. Then don't take it. It's not that simple. It is, he said. You just have to stop living for the version of you people expect. The words hit harder than I wanted to admit. You talk like someone twice your age, I said. He smiled. Maybe I just listen more. When I turned toward him, something in his expression shifted. Gentler, deeper. I realized how close we were. His arm brushed mine, and I didn't move away. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The sound of cars passing, distant music from the shop, wind catching loose hair, everything felt magnified. He looked at me, gaze soft but unwavering. If I told you I think about you, he said quietly, would that ruin this? Yes, I whispered, but you just did. A small, helpless smile crossed his face. Then I'll take the risk. The honesty in his voice, simple, unguarded, undid me more than any touch could. I felt something collapse inside me, something built from years of caution. I leaned my head against the wall, closing my eyes. "You have no idea what you're getting into." "Maybe I do," he said, "and maybe I still want to." That line, delivered with such calm conviction, left me breathless. When I opened my eyes, he was still watching me, sunlight sharp on his cheekbone, his black shirt unbuttoned just enough to reveal the curve of his throat. I could have ended it right there, drawn the line, reclaimed my distance, but I didn't. Instead, I let my hand rest near his. Not touching, just near enough that the air between us trembled. He didn't move, but I could feel his pulse in the quiet. And that was how it happened. Not with a kiss. Not with declarations, but with silence that said everything words couldn't. The following days blurred into a rhythm of stolen glances and unspoken truths. I'd stop by under the pretense of errands. He'd offer me water, coffee, a reason to stay. Each meeting felt riskier, like the universe was daring us to be seen. One afternoon, a coworker from my firm happened to walk by while I stood outside the garage. I froze. She waved cheerfully, not noticing the tension in my posture. Ethan noticed, though. He leaned against the car, pretending to check the tire, but his eyes flicked to me. Calm, steady reassurance. After she left, I exhaled hard. "That was close," he smiled faintly. "You afraid of being seen with me?" "I'm afraid of what people would say." "Then let them talk." He said it with such quiet certainty that I almost believed it could be that simple. As I turned to leave, he said softly, "You don't owe anyone an explanation for what makes you feel alive." Something in me broke open then, not from weakness, but release. For the first time in years, I stopped calculating consequences. I let myself feel. That night, as sunlight faded over the skyline and I sat by my window, the world felt sharper, more alive. My phone buzzed. A message from him. "You forgot your sunglasses. Or maybe you just wanted a reason to come back." I smiled, tracing the words with my thumb. He wasn't wrong. For the first time in a long time, I wanted to return. Not to be fixed, but to be seen. When something real begins in secret, you start measuring your life in stolen minutes. Morning coffee, lunch breaks, 5 o'clock sunlight spilling into a garage. Those small, golden pockets of time where no one else existed. Just his eyes, his voice, the way he'd look at me like I was something unfinished but worth understanding. For a while, it was enough, but real life always catches up. It started with a whisper at work. My assistant, Lila, had seen me in the industrial district, talking to a guy at a repair shop. She hadn't meant harm. She thought it was casual gossip. But by the afternoon, it had reached my business partner. "People notice things," he said carefully during our meeting, eyes flicking toward me like I was suddenly a liability. "You have a reputation for professionalism. Let's keep it that way." I smiled tightly. "Of course." But inside, shame and defiance battled like storm clouds over sunlight. After the meeting, I drove without thinking. Straight to the garage. He was outside, sleeves rolled up, shirt collar open as always, wiping his hands with a rag. When he saw my expression, he straightened immediately. "What happened?" I laughed, the kind that isn't really laughter. "Someone saw us," he frowned. "Saw us how?" "Talking, existing, being seen in the same frame." He looked at me, confused. "And that's a problem?" "In my world, apparently it is." He was quiet for a long moment. Then softly, "You're not doing anything wrong." I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe it so badly that it hurt. But I also knew how fragile power can be for women like me. Women who built empires out of control. Who learned that one rumor could undo years of work. "I can't risk it," I said, my voice low. "You don't understand what people can do with a story." He set the rag down, walking toward me. "Then let them tell their story. We'll write ours." The simplicity of his words shattered me more than any accusation could. "Ethan," I whispered, "you think it's that easy because you've never had to lose everything to keep your dignity." He stopped in front of me, sunlight blazing around him. And maybe you've spent so long protecting your dignity, you forgot what it's like to feel free. His calmness infuriated me and moved me. I turned away, swallowing hard. "You're young. You still think love fixes things," he exhaled. "No, I think love reveals things." For a week I stayed away. I buried myself in work, in silence, in every logical reason to move on. But the city looked different now. Every glint of sunlight on glass, every smell of engine oil, every sound of laughter in traffic reminded me of him. He had become a kind of gravity. By Thursday, my phone buzzed with a message. "If you need quiet, I'll be at the rooftop by the old cinema. You don't have to reply." It was such an Ethan message. Patient. Gentle, leaving room to choose. That evening, when the office emptied and the sky turned gold, I found myself driving there. The rooftop was high above the noise, an old building, newly renovated, with wide concrete edges and views of the skyline shimmering in the late afternoon light. He was sitting on the ledge, black shirt loose in the heat, sunlight washing over him. The city glowed around us, warm, open, alive. When he turned, I saw the hint of uncertainty in his smile. "Didn't think you'd come." "I shouldn't have," I said. "Then why did you?" I didn't answer. I just sat beside him, close enough to feel the warmth of his arm. For a while, we said nothing. The city stretched endlessly, cars, rooftops, birds tracing patterns in the sky. Everything felt painfully, beautifully still. "You know," he said after a long silence, "when I first saw you crying in that car, I thought you were someone who never let anyone see her like that. It scared me, how strong you looked even when you were breaking. Strength is easier than honesty," I said quietly. He turned, looking straight at me. "Then be honest now," I met his gaze. "I'm terrified. Of me? Of wanting something that doesn't fit the picture I've built." He smiled faintly. "Then maybe it's time to paint a new picture." The sunlight caught his face then, sharp and warm, the same light that had followed us since that first day. I don't know if I moved first or if he did, but suddenly his hand was on mine. Not pulling, not claiming, just holding. The weight of it felt like surrender. No words, no promises, just touch, quiet, human, real. The next morning, the fallout came, an email from the board. Questions about personal conduct. My partner wanted to discuss public perception. The same tired language people use when they mean control your emotions before they cost us money. I sat at my desk, staring at the message. Then I closed my laptop, grabbed my bag, and walked out. Sunlight flooded the street as I stepped outside. For once, I didn't care who saw me. I drove straight to the garage. When he saw me pull up, his expression shifted from surprise to something like understanding. "You left work," he said. "I quit," I corrected. His brows lifted. "You serious?" I nodded. "I'm tired of living for people who only see me as a resume." He watched me for a long moment, then said quietly, "So what now?" I looked around. The sunlight bouncing off chrome, the hum of engines, the smell of steel and citrus from his shirt. The air felt alive. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I'd rather start something uncertain than stay somewhere I feel invisible." He stepped closer, eyes steady. "Then start here." The simplicity of it undid me. I laughed through tears I didn't expect, and when I looked up, he reached out, slow, deliberate, brushing his thumb across my cheek. This time, I didn't flinch. The gesture wasn't romantic in the usual sense. It was grounding, a reminder that connection doesn't need approval to be real. Weeks passed. I didn't go back to the firm. Instead, I started consulting independently. Smaller clients, more freedom. My days filled with sunlight and quiet purpose. And sometimes, in between projects, I'd stop by the garage. Not as an escape this time, but as part of the life I was building. One where I could stand in the open, laugh in daylight and not apologize for it. People still talked. Colleagues whispered. My former partner sent polite, brittle emails, but none of it mattered the way it once did, because I'd stopped hiding. because I'd learned that peace doesn't come from perfection. It comes from truth. The last time I saw Ethan before he left town to open his own workshop, the air was bright and hot, shimmering above the asphalt. He was packing tools into the back of a pickup, his black shirt catching the light. When he saw me, he smiled, the same quiet, knowing smile that had started it all. "You did it," I said. "Your own place," he nodded. "Couldn't have done it without a certain someone reminding me that freedom's worth the risk." I stepped closer. "And what about you? Are you free now?" He tilted his head. "Freedom's not a place. It's a choice, and I think you already made yours." The sunlight flared between us, bright, almost blinding. He reached for my hand, squeezed it once, firm and warm. "You'll be okay." "I already am," I said. For a long moment, we just stood there, two people who'd found something real in a world built on appearances. Then he turned toward his truck, and I watched him go, black shirt glowing in the heat, collar still undone, sunlight painting him gold. As he disappeared into the city, I felt a calm I'd never known before. Later that evening, I sat by my window, the city bathed in gold. The streets hummed with life, glass reflecting the last of the day. I thought about how it all began. Tears, a stranger, a question. "Are you okay?" Back then I wasn't. Now, I finally was. Because sometimes love doesn't fix you. It just hands you the mirror you've been too afraid to hold. And in that reflection, lit by afternoon sun, I saw myself, not perfect, not unbroken, but alive. That was enough. If this story moved you, tell me which moment hit you hardest. Comment your thoughts below, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe for the next sunlit love story.